And gentlemen, welcome, welcome to Room for Discussion's Lustrum month. This month, I truly believe, is going to be the best month in the history of Room for Discussion. Our aim, a history which approximately started actually 10 years ago, around that area, when our first ever interview took place. It was in the midst of the financial crisis, or what we now know as the Great Recession. Our aim then and our aim now is still the same, to bridge the gap between academic theory and reality, between academic theories in your textbooks and the reality you see on the TV screens and newspaper coverages. This month, the reality we'll try to uncover is the current crisis facing our main institutions: democracy, the EU, and world trade. Today, we'll start with Carlos Puigdemont, former president of Catalonia, who exemplifies one of the key events that show how democracy is in crisis. Next week, we'll move on to Neelie Kroes, former commissioner of the European Union. Together with her, we'll discuss the challenges and opportunities facing this extremely polarizing institution. Lastly, on the third week, we'll discuss with Robert Koopman. We'll discuss the institution, the World Trade Organization with him, an institution whose future depends on the ideas, thoughts, and decisions of one wild man. However, if there's one thing I would change about this Lustrum theme, it's a question mark. I would add a question mark. Are we really in crisis, or is this just room for discussion being overly dramatic to try to get you guys all to be here? Regardless, I hope that by the end of this month, that question is answered. Today's interview will be hosted by two of our lovely alumni. So please, give a warm welcome to Jochem Jordan and Jasper van Dijk.
All right. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. Welcome here at Room for Discussion. My name is Jochem Jordan, this is Jasper van Dijk, and usually we start off our interviews here by saying that today we have a very special guest. But ladies and gentlemen, today we actually have a very special guest. Namely, the former president of Catalonia, Mr. Carles Puigdemont. He became known for the organization of the referendum on the 1st of October last year, after which he declared independence for a couple of seconds. He then moved to he moved to Brussels, after which he spent now for 1 year in exile. He's not able to go back to Spain, but he was able to accept our invitation here at our platform because we have a lot of interesting things to discuss.
Yes, so what are we going to talk about? So there are three main topics we want to discuss the upcoming hour. First of all, we want to discuss this rise of this independence movement in Catalonia. And secondly, we want to ask the very big question of what is democracy? But we want to ask this question inside the context of this Catalonian crisis. And finally, we want to ask ourselves the question, to what extent is this Catalan crisis also a European crisis? Well, so we're all here at Room for Discussion, so it's also possible for you to join the discussion. If you would like to do so, you could raise your hand. There are a few moments in the interview you could do so. And Pierre, with the mic, he's there. He will walk towards you, and then you could ask your very critical question. Well, and we want to emphasize that, so there are a lot of people here. Please do not interrupt the interview so that we can have a really nice hour here. Well, without further ado, let's give a big round of applause for Mr. Puigdemont.
Welcome. Mr. Puigdemont, once again, a very warm welcome here at Room for Discussion, our 10-year anniversary. I must say we have had a lot of interesting guests over the past 10 years. We never had someone who was not able to go back to his own country at the moment. That's of course a serious case. Now, we can imagine you missed your culture, you missed your family, your daughters, but because we know there's a lot of tension in the audience, we know that there's a lot of controversy around your visit, we thought, Jasper and I thought, let's start with something nice, which makes you feel comfortable here at stage, and therefore we decided to cook some dishes, some Catalan dishes this morning. So we thought at least you feel a little bit welcome here. You don't have to be nervous
Thank you very much.
the questions we will ask later on in this interview.
So if I understand, Escalibada?
Scalibada, yeah.
Sí. And Anjo...
And Shabbos Seitons.
Anjovis Sintons, and the last one?
It's el trinxat, o pot ser l'esqueixada.
All right, wonderful. Well, I propose that we have a little snack later on. Okay. We have it later on, but don't hesitate to taste. It's from the local Catalan restaurant here in Amsterdam.
But on a more serious note, so you haven't been to Catalonia for almost a year now. So how does that feel to not be able to go back home?
Well, first of all, let me say thank you very much for your invitation to be present at this event. I want to apologize because I'm not a fluent English speaker, so I will try to do the best of in order to explain a very complex issue, a very complex European issue. Well, as you can imagine, it's not easy for me, from a personal point of view, to live outside my country alone, without my wife, my doctors. It's not easy, really. But still feel at home in Belgium.
Oh, really?
Yes, because Europe is our home.
Yeah.
I'm feeling at home today, for example, in Amsterdam.
Because of the snacks?
Yes.
The tapas.
No, sure, really. I have not the feel to live outside my domestic world.
No.
No.
And so you're traveling around Europe. So
Yeah.
you've been to Germany, Denmark, and you live in Belgium.
Scotland.
Scotland.
Switzerland.
And so do you travel around in fear? Are you afraid of being arrested, that the policeman comes around?
Well, in fact, I was arrested when
So in Germany you were.
in Germany when I returned from Finland after attending a conference in the Helsinki University, after travel to Switzerland. When I was in Copenhagen the first time, I received a threat come from the Spanish judiciary power saying if you go there, probably we will demand your arrest. I decided to travel because my duty is to explain, despite the risk, because the crisis must be explained.
Yeah.
Well, we are very happy that you're here. So far, everything goes well. I think you don't have to to fear here to be removed from the stage. On a more serious note, you wrote a book. You travel around. Your book has just been published, A Catalan Crisis Opportunity for Europe.
Yeah.
You explain the way you grew up in the Franco regime at a young age. Now we've seen the rise of the Catalan independence movement was actually in the past 10 years. It heated up. Now you have always believed in an independent Catalonia. What made you believe so from the very young age, way before the majority of Catalans or a large part of Catalans believed so?
Well, I always have defended the independence of Catalonia, but also I accept the idea, and in fact I worked with that idea, that the Spanish state could be our own state if they finally recognize the identity of Catalonia and we can be Spaniards as Catalans.
How does it work? So on the same time you have always strived for an independent Catalonia, but on the same time not be independent from Spain.
Well, it's quite difficult to explain, but yes, after the Franco's death, and also from the approval of the Spanish Constitution in 1978, 40 years ago, we decided together to construct a new democratic, European, modern Spanish state.
Yeah.
And that concerns Catalonia too. And we try to do the best. We are supported, the governments from the left, the right, majority, minority, facing all the challenges, the entering the European Union, the Maastricht Agreement, the euro, the financial crisis. So finally, we, after do all things in order to obtain that kind of recognition of our identity within the Spanish state, we discovered in 2010 that way was not possible.
Yes, so we're going to talk about that in a minute, about 2010. It's an important event. And also in your book you mentioned that the Catalans are treated as second-class citizens. Well, why is that the case?
Yes, if you look, for example, in questions of language, I can use my own language in the Spanish Parliament, for example. I can use my language of the judge. One judge who works in Catalonia is not forced to understand Catalan. That's only concerning the language rights. But if you look, for example, the Spanish budget, and you finally prove what exactly means when the Spanish government executed the whole amount in the rest of the regions, and you, year after year, you are below the level of execution of the rest, of course you receive less money than the rest in order to improve your country, to serve better your citizens. And we can accept 1 year, 2 years of troubles, but after 40 years, that reality, that is clear.
Yeah,
we are not treated as Spaniards at the first level.
Yeah, so a lot happened. And what interested me was that in 2006, so if we go a bit back, only 15% of the inhabitants of Catalonia supported independence.
Right.
So what was the relationship with Spain very good at that moment?
Well, yes, because the traditional politic in the political tradition from the Catalanist, pro-Catalan parties was to try to improve, to modernize the Spanish state.
Yeah.
What was in fact, the pro-independence movement was always a minority, a political minority. Look, when the Spanish Constitutional Court decides to suspend and to reinterpret the main articles of our Statute of Autonomy.
Yeah, so that's in 2010.
2010, at that moment, from 135 seats in Catalan Parliament, only 14 were a member elected from a pro-independent party.
Yeah.
5 years after that, we're 72.
So maybe it's good for the audience to know. So in 2010, there was a statute that would give, if I explained correctly, that would give Catalonia more autonomy. So in 2006, there was a law that would give Catalonia more autonomy, and then in 2010, the Constitutional Court in Spain said, no, we're not going to do this. And then, is that the main turning point in the whole sentence?
Yeah, it's a very important point. In my book, I said, at that moment, in the brain of the significant part of Catalan community, each of our citizens has decided to make an intimated declaration of independence. Because the majority of Catalan people don't support before that the idea of an independent Catalonia. Yeah. For understand clearly what was going on at that time, first you must to remember we approved that law in the Catalan Parliament in 2005 with a huge majority. Yeah. When 120 parliamentaries voted for yes. After that, the Spanish Parliament approved with a huge majority that law, and finally we approved it through the referendum.
Yeah, so there was a lot of anger in 2010 when that law got rejected. That also led to 2 big and unofficial referendums that were organized, one in 2014, right, and one in 2017.
It was a non-binding consultation.
Non-binding consultation in which 80% voted in favor with a turnout around 40%. In 2017, in 2016 you became president. 2017, the referendum, the well-known referendum on the 1st of October was organized. Now, we were wondering if you see such a quick increase in the amount of Catalan citizens that are in favor of independence from 15% in 2006 to, let's say, around 45–50% nowadays. Do you see a possibility that this could also go backwards? That you say, let's say, if this law that was rejected in 2006, if it gets re-implemented, actually this whole Catalan movement will disappear again to a minimum?
Well, it could happen because the reality is moving. If you mean if the Constitutional Court has respected the decision of the people of Catalonia, will we be at that point? Sure not.
Yeah, is it possible to get...
Sure not.
Well, I'm asking this because you could also imagine that you say, well, Spain or Madrid has crossed a point and it won't be possible to get back? Or you say this is actually a very moving movement, which on one day now in 2017, a lot of people might be in favor, but maybe in the next 5 years, that could be back at 15%.
Well, the things are changing, of course.
Yeah, but it's interesting to see that it happens in such a quick period of time.
Well, it's not a quick period of time, but if you mean if Spain propose a kind of devolution max in sense of that Cameron has done in the case of Scotland, the majority of Catalan people could renounce. We don't know. The only way to know that is to ask and to accept the results. I always say I will accept a negative result of a referendum about the independence of Catalonia. But we don't know if the majority of Catalan people are in favor of a new Statute of Autonomy or in favor of an independent state. Because we must to ask the people, and we demand the right to ask the people. And only for exercise the right to ask, there are 9 people in jail, 7 people in exile, a lot of measures persecuted. So we are claiming for the right to ask.
Exactly, and we will discuss this in the next topic on the question of democracy, right? Who should be able to ask and who do you ask? For now, I'm just looking at the audience. There are a lot of people in the audience. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions. We can only pick a few. I see one hand over there. Please, a specific question regarding to the topics that we have just discussed. The rise of the independence movement for Mr. Puigdemont.
First of all, I have a lot of deep respect for your courage to travel around Europe and to really stand for what you believe in. But my question to you is, if you ask the people of your nation what they want, independence or not, do you truly believe that you can narrow it down to a yes or a no? Because The Guardian has produced a series of Catalan people who were interviewed freely, and they were saying, we don't want to narrow it down to yes or no. We believe in a yes, but, no, but. You're narrowing it down to a yes or a no, and you're not allowing the people of Catalonia to really emphasize what they want.
Right.
Do you think that, my question is, do you really think a yes or a no is the true answer for independence for Catalonia?
Well, if you mean it's the independence the only possibility to be asked to the people, yes, I say no. There are other possibilities, but I say in the table there are one single proposal to the Catalan people, is to build an independent state. But we accept to choose between that alternative or a kind of devolution max, but that is it's up to the Spanish government to say something about that. Well, it's not our duty.
Let me build up on that, because I think on the referendum in 2014, the unofficial referendum, another question was asked than the one you asked in 2017.
Sure. It was, are you agree Catalonia must be a state? And if yes, that state must be independent or part in a Spanish federation or a Spanish confederation. Well, we are ready to work with that.
So in 2014, you could actually get 2 questions. First, do you want Catalonia to become an independent, an autonomous state? And secondly, do you want it to become independent? What was the reason that this form of question was not chosen in your referendum in 2017?
Well, because we finally, that referendum in the 1st of October was a binding referendum, was approved by a law in Catalan parliament, and was official. It's not a kind of poll.
But you could have asked that question, right?
Yes, but we introduced in the question the word republic. That is a fact that in Catalonia they are more pro-republican than the partisans of the independence. That it's clear in the polls. You can see obviously that figures. But including the word republic, we appeal the people in Catalonia that probably don't like Catalan independent, but prefers to live in a society organized by the rules of the republic. For that reason, we choose one single option. But if you mean, is another kind of question possible in a such referendum? Yes, it is.
Well, so we're going to talk about the referendum in a minute, a lot. But first, so we have the whole independence movement. We have 2010, and So there was a huge mobilization of this independence movement. It grew exponentially, and then you came into the picture. 2016, you were mayor of Girona, and you were asked to become president of Catalonia. Did you expect this would ever happen?
No.
No?
No, absolutely not. And when my former president Artur Mas asked me, "Do you want to be the candidate?" I asked, "Well, how many time I have to decide that?"
15 minutes.
He said, "Well, a quarter." Only a short quarter. Well, okay, 20 minutes. And in 20 minutes, I must to decide that.
So what went through your mind in those 15 minutes?
It's like a cafetera, you know. But I have no choice. If seriously, if I had renounced that offer, I will quit the politics. I quit the politics.
Yeah. So
And, I was forced to accept if I will continue doing politics.
Yeah, because from day one you accepted his request. You became president of Catalonia, and from day one you have campaigned for a referendum on the independence of Catalonia, right? Requesting the Catalans whether they want an independent Catalonia or not. Before we discuss the referendum and democracy in general, let's go quickly to this day, the 1st of October. That's probably also how you became famous in the Netherlands. You became famous all around the world, basically. It was almost exactly 1 year ago, 1st of October. Very controversial, considered illegal by the High Court of Spain. We read that the ballot boxes, they were not provided by the Spanish government, but they had to be bought in China. They were stored in France, and then taken to Catalonia to, in a rush, make people be able to vote. How did that go?
Well, that is the success of globalization. And yes, and the empowering of the society.
Yeah.
We believe in a country which country the population has the responsibility of the public matters.
Yeah.
That referendum would not be possible without the engagement of the huge part of the Catalan society. Of course, we buy the ballot boxes not through the official ways.
Yeah.
So we don't use one single public euro to buy the papers, the ballot boxes, or the papers.
So who put money in? So how did you get?
It's volunteers, crowdfunding, because the will of the people is based in the responsibility also to the people, and we organize very quickly and very confidential mode, in fly mode, a network of volunteers around the Catalonia, but with help from outside, concerning the technological tools to allow a tool called universal census, very interesting to use that, to distribute the ballot boxes around the country.
So and it was quite a successful operation, you would say. And so, but the police tried everyone to prevent everyone from voting that day, and especially you. They didn't want you to vote. So, so how was that day for you? How did you experience that?
Where did you wake up, for instance? How you were hidden probably because the police did not want you to vote because that would encourage other people to go to the ballot box?
When I wake up, I live in a house close to Girona city. I discovered an helicopter from the military Spanish military police surrounding my head and follow me with my car. I try. Well, I know I received the information from my team in the polling station, and with the use of the extremely violence from the Spanish police there. I decided not to be there in order not to create a huge provocation, and I decided to use that tool, the universal census, to exercise my right to vote in another polling station. I try to be close to my polling booth. Yeah. I was followed by the helicopter.
Sounds exciting.
Yes, the universal census was not able to use there. We decided to return my home, and in order to return my home, we must to stop in the bridge, and at that point we decided to change the the car,
Jesus,
Oh,
sounds
wow.
like a movie.
to put my mobile phone in the other car,
Yeah.
my wife's mobile phone too, to use a car, not official car, and to go in another place, which was able to use the universal sensors.
Wow.
And 3 cars, one car, my official car, returns to my home.
Yeah.
And the helicopter follows my car, just to my home. And my car, another car goes in the other direction, and my car was just to Cornellà de Terri to exercise my right to vote.
And it worked out. Congrats! It sounds like a
no,
difficult
no,
strategy.
it's very sad to do that
Of course.
in order
yeah.
to exercise the right to vote.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We don't not to.
Yeah.
It's very. It's not. I'm not happy to explain how we succeed
Yeah.
to win to
Because-
win.
Because you did succeed. There was a 43% turnout on the end.
Yeah.
92% voted in favor of independence, which is probably sounds like a high number, but a lot of pro-unionists decided to remain home.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about these tools. You say you appeal to the fact that the people's voices should be heard, right? And there are a couple of ways, if we look at political science perspective, there are a couple of ways in order to make this happen. Indeed, your tool that you said would be most effective is the organization of a referendum. It can also be done through seeking compromise between the elected leaders of, in this case, the Catalan region and Madrid. Let's discuss first this referendum and especially the question, who are the people that should decide upon the future of Catalonia? Are these all citizens of Spain, or are these only the citizens of Catalonia? Because you work within the framework of the Constitution of Spain, which you have also signed. So how would you, what would you argue?
Well, it's a very interesting question, but you cannot put that question if you before answer another question.
Yeah.
Has the Catalan people the right to be independent or not? It doesn't matter if who finally will decide,
No, that's
but
true.
we demand the right to be independent. And of course, we expect to decide for ourselves, because it's the main attitude in that cases. There is one single exception. Is the case of the independence of Algeria.
Yeah.
But the rest of the cases of the referendum of determination, the part who want to be independent who votes. But if finally the answer of that question from the Spanish government is yes, you are right to be independent, but the only way to be independent is the whole Spain. We are not at that point.
Yeah.
So you say that the people can decide whether they want independence. So maybe a strange hypothetical question. For example, Catalonia becomes independent maybe in 30 years,
Yep.
and Catalonia is an independent nation, and the people of Barcelona decide, okay, we're going to hold a referendum, and people show up, 51% vote, okay, we should be independent. And would you allow Barcelona to become independent?
Two things about that. First, the borders are not something sacred by the grace of God. Every border is an artificial convention made by the humanity. So it's nothing sacred. That idea that the unity of Spain is a kind of religion, I'm fighting against that.
Yeah, borders are changing. Has been happening.
Second, we approved. In fact, we have a situation like that in Catalonia now. Is in the case of the La Vall d'Aran. Is in a valley which his own language is Occitan, with its own culture, and we approved. I remember, I think we unanimously in Catalan Parliament the law regarding that valley, accepting the right of self-determination. So we answer that question. Nothing is forever. Nothing is forever.
So every group in the world can just say, okay, we have 51%.
No, that concerns the demos. Who is the demos? What is the demos in every case? We are acting in the rule of the international treaties and covenants. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the Article 1 say all peoples are right to self-determination. And that appeals to the demos. If finally one part of Catalonia or one part of the Valencia want to join Catalonia, why not? Why not?
Sure, but like what you say depends on the demos. But what is the demos in that sense? If, for instance, I'm sure people always say that Amsterdam is kind of a bubble within the Netherlands. If we say in Amsterdam, whatever, we're not going to listen to the provinces anymore, we're just going to stick with ourselves and have some progressive politics. Is that indeed the demos that you say that is kind of the way that we should organize ourselves within the world nowadays?
In the sense of the International Covenant on Civil Political Rights, that concerns the people.
Yeah.
And the people, it's clearly a group of people who recognize themselves in the certain way of living and the will in common to construct a kind of society.
Sure,
and how to manage. There is, of course, for some things, there is a demos, a metropolitan demos. For example, concerning the mobility, the decision to allow or not the diesel cars enter in London or in Paris or in Amsterdam is a decision up to the local authorities.
Yeah.
That it exists for some kind of questions.
Yeah.
Exist one demos, but for exercise the right of self-determination, that is in the sense of the international, the United Nations Card, is concerning the people.
Yeah. Okay, I think I would like to move on to the second question regarding this referendum, which is, once we have agreed on who are the people, in your case you say it should be the Catalans that vote for whether they want independence or not. The next question remains, is the majority indeed democratic? Or put it a different way, how do you deal with the fact that the other half of the Catalan society does not actually agree with a Catalan independence?
It's enough to have one vote more to decide to be independent.
You think so?
Or let me say differently, it's enough to have one vote more to remain in Spain. Yes, technically, yes, because it's the case of Brexit or other referendums, but it's possible to accept, to have a qualified majority, like in the case of Montenegro's referendum, in order to apply the results. We are open to discuss about that. Yeah,
So
sure.
But still you have a country where 49% perhaps does not agree. So what do you tell those people? That maybe they are worried that they will lose their job, that the independence will have severe economic consequences. How would you deal with that?
Oh, there is some kind of economic consequences, but not negatives. Probably most of them are positives. You probably have heard last month or last year the economical consequences of the struggle for independence in Catalonia. But if you look the official figures, you can see the growth of Catalan economy is higher than the Spanish economy.
But it's
we
always been the
reduce-
case, right?
Yes,
So there
yeah.
are rich reasons.
But the Republic, it's about future, it's not about the present. And the future, the shared future, with a Catalan who believes or not in independence. And we must to be able to use our tools and our resources in order to construct, to ensure a good health system, a good educational system.
But still, would you agree that if Catalonia becomes independent, there will be a great economic shock? That there will, so already 3,000 businesses left, companies left Catalonia after the referendum. So there is this tension.
Yes, but if you look, I insist, if you look to the official figures, the number of the enterprises based in Catalonia, you can see the highest number on the last 9 years. So it's obvious there are mobility.
Had a severe crisis, right?
There are mobility, of course, and some big enterprises has announced to move its social seat, not fiscal or direction or production center, but only the social seat. Some of them, but in fact, finally, we increase the number of the enterprises based on Catalonia.
What I'm wondering, because obviously you fight for the voice of the people. In your book, also you mention often that we Catalans want independence. Why do you actually refer to that?
Well, the same way when I heard the Spanish Prime Minister or the French Prime Minister talking from the King of Spain.
But you disagree with them, right? So why would you follow
I use
the
the convention in the parliamentary system, if you are a majority, you are elected by majority of the people, you are the government, you need to work for the whole people. So when we organize a referendum, we organize that referendum in order to allow the people who are against independence to vote against it. And to ban that referendum is not to protect the right the Catalan people who are against independence to express themselves against that.
All right, I think that's clear. Maybe it's good to, before we move on from the referendum to the compromise part, to see whether there are a few audience questions on the topics we just discussed. And please, some students that raise their hands, no journalists. Over there, I see a question. Yeah, please stand up if you ask your question.
Don't you think it's a bit hypocritical to ask that 49% that doesn't agree with independence to just wait for it and see what happens? Because I'm sure that 51% is willing to like sustain that economic impact that independence would have, but maybe that 49% isn't. So,
well, you are right. The best way to know what people want is to have a public, normal exchange of opinions with a lot of information regarding the effects, positive, negative, the consequences to be independent or to remain in Spain. For that, we need to have the engagement from the Spanish government and for the pro-unionist parties to participate in such debate. It's impossible to have a normal debate if one of the parts concerned by the question don't agree to talk about it. But you are right. It's a debate that needs a lot of information, a change of information. No one has the truth. No one has the right. One part of the reality, the truth is on the other side, and that is democracy. And we try to do that. But the last time we tried to do that in the Catalan Parliament, the consequences is the former president of Catalan Parliament, now is in jail for allowing such debate.
All right, thank you for your question. I saw a hand raised here. He was first here in France.
Hi, good afternoon. I want to talk about something you mentioned at the beginning. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that there's some people who are sent to prison because they wanted to hear the voice of the Catalans. But isn't it true, and correct me if I'm wrong again, that these people were imprisoned more because they tried to take away the power that Spain has in a territory instead of just asking a question?
Well, they are accused by rebellion and embezzlement of funds, like me, by myself. Rebellion in the Spanish civil code, penal code, exiges the use of violence, the use of weapons, and the use of guns in order to remove the constitutional order. It's obviously not the case. We use a tool or a weapon called ballot boxes. And second, after the last reform of the penal code, the Spanish legislators decide to remove from or to withdraw from the penal code the organization of a referendum for independence. It's not a crime in Spain. It's not a crime. That they are in jail for two of them, three of them for more than 11 months without trial.
Thank you for very. There are a lot of questions. So is it very necessary? Okay, very short. Is it relevant?
Do you agree that nobody should be judged for trying to take away the power that a country has over a part of its territory?
But we decide, we acting in the frame of the Catalan power. The parliamentary decision was a parliamentary decision, was not made by insurrection in the streets or a revolutionary movement, was voted in Catalan parliament.
All right, thank you for your question. A question over there, and please keep it concise so we can move on with the interview afterwards.
Yeah, thank you very much. Mr. President, you talked about the past and that few people were sent to jail and you're living obviously in exile. And do you have, I want to ask about the future, do you have any plans of, I don't know, reaching a compromise to the Spanish government in order to back to Catalonia and maybe do some other things in order to fulfill your requests? Thank you.
First of all, nothing has a relationship with my personal situation. I'm ready to be in jail, to be in exile, or to return. It depends on the situation. But nothing concerning the political solution, I want to separate my personal situation that the political situation, the political resolution. The only way, really, the only way to solve correctly is to agree with the Spanish state how we can demand to Catalan people its will. They will. This is the only way, and for that we need to allow the conditions that could create the conditions to allow that discussion. It's not possible to have a normal discussion with political prisoners, people in exile, police acting in the streets. That is not the best idea to manage such a situation.
Thank you very much for your question. It's a nice bridge to the topic that we wanted to discuss, which was the compromise here in the Netherlands. We call it polderen maybe. Sometimes maybe it's hard for us to understand all these independence movements, while usually, of course, your situation is much more tough. But here in Holland, we are known for seeking compromise, finding a solution somewhere in between. So I would like to ask a question on that. You mentioned in an interview with the Belgian newspaper De Morgen last week, and again I read it in the NRC this morning as well, that you said that you regret that you have been hesitant about declaring Catalan independence. Why was that the case? Because I think it builds on it.
That was in the 10th of October, 4 days after the official results of the referendum. I present that results in front of the Catalan parliament. Regarding our laws, after that, we must to apply the results. But several days before, 1 week before, we and I myself was in touch with the Spanish government. After the 1st of October, after the King's speech, we decide to talk if there is a possibility to open a window for a dialogue.
To compromise as well, or was it because
there was no make compromise?
Okay.
And from the Spanish side, they asked me, well, please, do not do nothing irreversible. Yes, okay, I will do something very difficult for me, is to declare independence, but to suspend the effects in order to allow that window of opportunity to dialogue. And
you said that has been the greatest mistake you made.
Yeah, because the dialogue doesn't happen.
The dialogue doesn't happen. Well, at that time, indeed, it was the Partido Popular, right, the conservative government in power. They are known to be generally opposing any form of Catalan autonomy. I think you can agree with me on that. Now, this year, of course, you have a new president, Mr. Sanchez, from the Socialist Party. He has actually at least mentioned in the news, you say you don't get concrete messages from him yet, but he has said that let's organize a referendum on Catalan autonomy. It seems like he is more open for conversation, that he is indeed trying to get these two blocks together, to seek a compromise. However, I believe that you only want to negotiate if a referendum by the Catalan people is present. Is that right?
Well, we must not forget that we voted for Pedro Sánchez. Pedro Sánchez is president because our support in the Spanish parliament. And we expect to know if the receipt from the Pedro Sánchez receipt is the version, the 2.0 version of the Rajoy's receipt.
Yesterday you called it Rajoy 2.0.
Or
right?
is a new one, maybe in the better version. We don't expect to vote about the new Statute of Autonomy. No one in Catalonia is demanding that way. We only expect to know what is exactly the Spanish project for Catalonia. Is the current statu quo, or they understood this, the 1st of October decision and propose a Spanish project, Spanish way to solve that situation.
But let me...
yes, Pedro Sánchez has changed its vocabulary, and the climate change has changed. The climate has
change
changed
as well? Yeah.
The
I'm
climate
sorry,
has changed
Yeah.
in the Spanish politics. But the politics are exactly the same.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
Just to get some things clear, in case he's willing to negotiate, let's say he calls you tomorrow, he says, Carles, we have to sit together. You know what? We are going to organize a referendum on increased autonomy, on a certain amount of serious approaches towards coming together to Catalonia, but we won't organize or allow a referendum on the independence of Catalonia. Would you even consider negotiating with him?
Well, I'm quite sure that the first thing that Pedro Sánchez could demand me is please don't explain I called you to talk about the union. And I understand that.
Sure.
Well,
is it a red line for you?
The red line is any kind of agreement must be accepted by the Catalan people through the referendum.
Yes.
We agree with that. We agree with a significant part of the statement from Pedro Sánchez. We call a referendum for self-government. Till self, we are agree.
Yeah.
We need a new referendum for self. The few differences are determination or government.
Yeah.
And I propose to work with that.
Okay.
And finally, if there are different compromise, I can't imagine, but imagine if finally the Spanish government proposed something like the Statute of Autonomy approved in 25,
for instance,
for a Catalan parliament, for instance, we must to agree also what the results means. For example, in case of no. In case of no, that means we are happy with the current statu quo? Obviously, no. In case of no, we refuse that proposal. What does mean? What next?
Yeah.
And we must to talk about that.
So you keep the door open generally to say we can talk about simply more autonomy rather than only the organization of a referendum on independence.
We demand the freedom and the right to explain our project, to be an independent republic, and we accept the project, a different project from the Spanish side. The Spanish government has his right to propose a different solution. And our commitment, our compromise is to work with both proposals on the table. That is a negotiation.
So we can say that we are quite in a political deadlock right now. And in your book, you suggest that Donald Tusk, the president of the European Council, should mediate in this conflict. Do you think he will help?
Well, it was a kind of metaphor to say. There is a role for the European Union in such crisis, yes, because it's a European crisis. It's a European issue. And it's not acceptable to see our Europe with nothing to do and nothing to say about what's going on in Catalonia. We are more than 2 million European citizens demanding exercise one right recognized by the majority of the European states, the right of self-determination. And a significant part of that voters were beaten by the Spanish police. And the fundamental rights are violated.
But after the referendum, there wasn't hardly any government supporting the independence. So do you remain optimistic that the European Union would do something about this?
Because I believe in Europe. For example, that lack of compromise regarding the humanitarian crisis in the Mediterranean, I'm not happy with that Europe. When during the last conflicts in the former Yugoslavia, the sign of European Union was not acceptable. I believe in a more politically unified Europe, acting as a political actor in the crisis. Not only in the case of financial crisis or trade crisis, also in politics. And when in a part of the Union they are a threat against the fundamental values, doesn't matter if in Hungary or in Poland or in Italy or in Spain, that concerns the whole Europe.
Yeah.
Because the rights are for all the European citizens.
So far, I can imagine you have been disappointed by the way that the European Union has approached your referendum. You have been, for 1 year, you've been living in Brussels now. Do you see a change in the perspective taken on Catalonia by official members of Parliament?
Well, I was disappointed not by the official opinion from European Union concerning the referendum.
But by its leaders?
No, by
No?
its silence regarding the violation of the fundamental rights. That is my disappointment. The European Union has nothing to do regarding that concerning that huge violence used against European citizens. I insist in that because the fundamental rights protected by European Union concerns all European citizens, despite if the political position from the European institutions is very close to the political position from the Spanish government. Is that my disappointment? Not concerning the referendum.
So you're traveling around Europe to try to get this message out.
Yeah.
And so I've read that last week you ate a peace paella. I've read it with the Flemish nationalists. So the
the N-VA, yeah.
Peace paella.
Paella, very good.
The vredespel, yeah, it said. So are you working together with those other independence movements?
No.
Not at all. They just invited you.
No. I'm doing politics for Catalonia, not for Flanders or for Belgium.
It was suggested you might be on their list for the European elections.
Yes, but that is not, no way.
Fake news?
No, yes, it was a fake news because no one single proposal, no intention. When I was in Germany, another party has proposed to me to be elected from its candidate for the list. No,
which party was that?
I can't remember the name,
Okay.
but it appears. No. Was in the media. In the media.
Ah, in the media. Okay.
No, we support all the peoples who are fighting for exercise the right of self-determination. But once said this, we respect the way of each country decides how to exercise that right. We don't know. We don't want to be involved in other political systems or other political cases.
Okay, so and in your book, if we talk about Europe, you also have a chapter when you talk about your kind of vision of Europe, and you say you want to go, Europe should go more to a federal Europe, United States of Europe, you could say. So how do you see Catalonia in this federal Europe? What will be the place of Catalonia?
I think a more federal Europe will recognize more diversity, will recognize its own diversity, which is more riches than the map of the borders, official borders. And I believe in European unified politically.
Yep.
And I have not one single problem to have only a passport saying you are European. Because our struggle is not a classical nationalist struggle, demanding first of all flag, borders, and passport, and army, and currency. We only want to have in our hands the tools and the resources to serve our citizens. We try to do it within the Spanish state. That was not possible, but it's possible in the frame of the more unified Europe. Yes, sure, and we are for that. And finally, in the challenge of the fourth industrial revolution, when the very serious tool, the very serious weapon is the smartphone, you put in the hands of the people one power with no precedent, very enormous power in order to empower people to participate in the management of the democracy, not only for vote, to explain, to opinion, to have to do something. For example, the last, I think was in August, the European Union has ended the poll, the question concerning the summer time, if it's not interesting or we must change or not summertime.
That's our main concern at the
Yeah.
moment in
Yeah.
Holland. Well, we have a lot of more problems to think about.
Less than 1% on the European citizens participated in it.
Yeah. You
It
think that's not a lot?
Do you
I mean,
One-
1%. it
less
means
than 1%. Yes, but for
it's
the
not a
European
non-issue, right?
yeah, but for the European Commission, they decide to suspend, to
Yeah.
change the policies on the summertime because the majority of the voters
Yeah, in
has,
that sense, sure.
decided.
Yeah.
Well, that shows we must to trust to the citizens. Now the society has power because it's well formed, well connected, free, and with a capacity to do more than to put paper every 4 years.
In a ballot box.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you
we have
so much. I think we have
Yeah,
some time
let's-
for some audience questions.
I think
ladies
we
and
have a
gentlemen.
few minutes left.
Renier, I think you will have to walk a little bit. I see over there. Raise your hand in the back if you go behind the cameras. I see a hand. Yeah, the gentleman over there. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Hi, so my question is in regards to the European Union. So the president of the European Parliament openly stated that Catalonia, if it were to be independent, would never be able to join the European Union. So how do you think Catalonia can survive economically, considering about like 2/3 of your trades go to countries in the European Union?
Well, we don't believe in a Catalonia outside the European Union. This is not real. For what? Because, first of all, we are 7.5 million European citizens living in Catalonia. And that will not change, despite the status quo of Catalonia, because we will keep our European citizenship. And second, the only way as an independent state to be banned to remain a part of the European Union is in case of the recognition of the Republic of Catalonia from the Spanish state. If Spain recognizes an independent Catalonia, that means a peaceful agreement. That means an agreement concerning the debt, Spanish debt, concerning the border, the citizenship, the assets, concerning all things in common interest. And what is the most common interest for us? To remain in Europe, because we are member of the European Union, and we are using.
But if that's not possible to stay in the European Union, so then the whole independence movement
No
just
one want to be
collapsed?
No one want to be outside of the European Union. Look.
But it's a hypothetical question, right? Because he says in case Catalonia becomes independent, that means that all member states will have to vote again upon the entrance. It's probably a question you get a lot, but
No,
have
because,
you put your thoughts in
if
that?
I say yes, probably one of you could say, well, you are planning to live outside European Union.
Yeah.
I'm not at all that
Okay,
way.
okay, yeah.
But there is countries that are not members of the European Union with a very high level of life. But there is no question in Catalonia concerning that issue.
All right. That's clear. Thank you. I would like to go a little bit more that way. I'm afraid we cannot go up there, but over there, yeah.
So I'm glad that you mentioned that you truly believe in the European project, which is something nice to hear, especially nowadays. And my question is, do you think that there's the risk that some certain political elites may actually exploit and exacerbate the struggles of some certain sets of the population that ask for self-recognition and independence and autonomy, and that may actually lead to the collapse of the European project? For instance, in Italy, we have had two pseudo-fake referenda in Lombardy and Veneto that ended up, to a lesser extent, being like a political spot for an electoral spot for a certain party that is now part of the coalition, the government coalition.
Yeah.
Well, to be realistic, there is no one single other region in Europe with a parliament with an absolute majority in the hands of pro-independence parties. So that risk could exist, but it's not real. It's not real. We, in the case of Scotland, if Scotland has voted for yes, I'm quite sure that could not start a domino effect. I think it's not a kind of fake news, but is not based on the real fear. I'm thinking it's like kind of an alibi in order to know discuss about that. There is no other case that Catalonia like Catalonia in European region system.
But for example, if Catalonia becomes independent and it goes really well and you're wealthy, then maybe other groups in Europe would say, oh, we want that as well. Let's go. And then maybe then you will have your domino effect and it will destabilize.
Wait, but if you show the way to be independent is the way to improve the life of our citizens, what is wrong?
Well, probably wouldn't improve the life of others, right?
No, but probably if you have the ability to manage the differences, to respect the principle of subsidiarity, and to ensure a new empowerment to the citizens, the states are something less important than today. And the weight of a state in our lives will decrease in the future, thanks to the globalization, the technology, and the new empowerment of the people.
All right, clear. Thank you for your question. Over here, because I feel like I think I should ask a woman. Yeah, over there, because we have had a lot of men.
Hi. Just because you mentioned Yugoslavia and that you thought that in the Balkan conflict the EU did not get involved enough, and you want to have the EU's political powers involved more in this conflict, yet
I can't hear you. Sorry.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Earlier you stated, when mentioning the Balkan War, that you want to have the EU more politically involved in this process as well, right? On the other hand, you seem to pride yourself with the European value of sovereignty as well. These two seem to clash a little bit, and this might also be a bit of a reframing of the picture of EU in a way that seems to suit you very well, but I don't believe is very realistic. How do you see this?
Well, the right of self-determination, as a significant number of experts are saying, is a tool of peace. And a significant number of wars since 1914 has its origin in the lack of commitment to the right of self-determination. So when I ask to the European Union to act more deeply in the Balkanic crisis, is to prevent, because it's the more intelligent tool to solve the problems, to prevent it, to accept the right to self-determination of the people who demand this, for example. And I believe in a political voice, a European political voice in the world. I only heard Mr. Trump, Mr. Putin, China, but I can hear the European voice in political way.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So we've talked for an hour.
Okay.
And so I think we have to close up. I'm sorry for all the other
But you did still not have any of our tapas. Is it maybe, is it the taste or
I'm
have
sorry,
you
but
had
it's too early.
lovely, right?
It's too early for me.
We can have them afterwards.
I need to change the...
So my last question here is, do you think you will ever be able to return back to Spain? Are you optimistic?
Well, in Spain I don't know, but in Catalonia, yes. I will return
it's
to
independent.
Catalonia.
Well, I think that was a very clear answer, which is a great summary of today's discussion. First of all, I would really like to thank the audience. I must say it's impressive that with such a large crowd, we were able to have such a constructive debate. Many thanks for your questions. I thought this was a great start of a 10-year anniversary celebration of Room for Discussion. Then secondly, of course, we would like to very much thank Mr. Puigdemont for being here. We wish you a lot of luck in the coming months, coming years. It's a difficult struggle. It's a hard struggle, and we wish you all the best. So, ladies and gentlemen, please a warm applause for Mr. Puigdemont.
Thank you very much.